Hello students, teachers, parents, history nerds. Hello everybody, and welcome to Nutshelled History, where we lay out the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today we are going to continue our United States history series by looking at reshaping America in the early 1800s. Don't forget that there's a link for a fill-in-the-blank worksheet in the description. I just ask that you like and subscribe. I apologize for any mispronunciations ahead of time. I do my best. Okay, let's go. In the 1600s and 1700s, the Spanish were all about ranches, missions, and presidios in New Mexico, Texas, and California, but the places were as sparsely populated as a desert oasis. They tried to convert locals to Christianity, with Father Junipero Serra's mission chain being the only thing more successful than their attempts to keep peace with the locals. Fast forward to 1821, and Mexico had a revolution, becoming its own thing. The U.S. thought this was a great time to eye Mexico's northern territories, thinking it was their divine right to have it all, thanks to manifest destiny. The U.S. started trading along the Santa Fe Trail, while adventurous fur trappers, known as mountain men, and big wagon trains made their way west on the Oregon Trail. The Mormons, fleeing religious persecution, trekked to the Great Salt Lake to build a new home. Although American Indians mostly played it cool during these migrations, the federal government still signed the 1851 Treaty of Fort Laramie to keep everyone safely out of the way. In February 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo had Mexico handing over the northern third of their country like it was a very large, unwanted gift. The U.S. further expanded its haul in 1853 with the Gadsden Purchase, snagging parts of what are now New Mexico, Arizona, and other states, making the U.S. as big as a teenager's appetite for snacks. The Mexican-American War stirred up a hot mess of arguments over slavery, with the Wilmot Proviso suggesting banning it in the new territories, causing Congress to split into a real soap opera of northern and southern drama. In 1848, a gold discovery in California kicked off the gold rush, drawing tens of thousands west, who lived through a rough patch of hard work, low pay, and poor living conditions. Initially, gold was panned from streams, but soon miners were blasting hills with water jets and tearing up the environment. The gold rush was a mixed bag. It led to a massive increase in California's population, but also brought violence and displacement to American Indians and Mexican Americans. And when California tried to become a state, it caused yet another showdown over slavery, threatening to upset the balance of free and slave states like a game of political Jenga. In the early 1700s, America caught a serious case of religious fervor known as the Great Awakening. The early 1800s saw a sequel called the Second Great Awakening, with preachers like Charles Grandison Finney hosting emotional outdoor revival parties that packed in the crowds and won over converts, including African Americans who even started their own churches. This holy hype led to new religious teams. Joseph Smith kicked off the Mormons in 1830, and New England Puritans formed the Unitarians, who preferred a solo god over a trio. While Protestant zealots thrived, non-Protestants like Mormons, Catholics, and Jews faced discrimination, with riots and barred offices adding to their woes. Meanwhile, dreamers set up idealistic utopian communities, and transcendentalists like Emerson and Thoreau went on spiritual nature walks to ponder life's big questions. Reformers, inspired by this burst of energy, tackled everything from improving education, thanks to Horace Mann and Catherine Beecher, to building humane mental hospitals, Dorothea Dix, and improving prisons. They also waged a battle against booze with the temperance movement, where Neal Dow's successful temperance law in Portland, Maine, led the charge for other states to follow suit. In the early 1800s, the U.S. was like a really bad reality show featuring 2 million Africans and African Americans stuck in the worst possible jobs. They faced tough conditions with not much food or comfort and physical punishment for not meeting their workload. Some tried to keep their spirits up through family ties and a blend of African and Christian faiths, while others were busy plotting escapes and revolts. Denmark Vesey's grand plan for a revolt fizzled out, but Nat Turner's rebellion really got the slaveholders' attention. Meanwhile, some folks up north, who were definitely not having any of this slavery nonsense, joined the abolitionist movement. William Lloyd Garrison launched the Liberator and got 150,000 people to join the American Anti-Slavery Society, all fighting for the end of slavery. Frederick Douglass, a former slave, gave powerful speeches and advised President Lincoln. However, many Americans were still clinging to slavery, fearing economic collapse or believing in all sorts of dubious justifications. Even some Northerners didn't want to touch the issue, leading to the gag rule in 1836, which basically put a "do not disturb" sign on any discussion about abolition in Congress. In the 1800s, American women were basically stuck in the 19th century equivalent of the No Boys Allowed clubhouse. They couldn't vote, own property, or even run for office, and their education options were as sparse as a desert oasis. Some American Indian cultures had their own take on women's roles, with inheritance and family names following the female line, which was pretty cool. But for most women, their big break came from the Second Great Awakening, where churches and reform groups gave them a stage to speak up, like Sojourner Truth, who was quite the abolitionist rock star. Women started pushing for more rights, comparing their lack of freedoms to slavery, and by 1848, things were looking up with the Seneca Falls Convention and a shiny new Married Women's Property Act in New York. Progress was slow, but at least they were moving from no rights to some rights, with a side of hope for the vote. Okay, let's recap. In the 1600s and 1700s, the Spanish were busy setting up ranches, missions, and presidios in the sparsely populated lands of New Mexico and California, trying to convert locals with mixed results. By 1821, after Mexico's revolution, the U.S. decided it was their divine right to grab Mexico's northern territories, leading to a flurry of westward expansion with the Santa Fe Trail, Oregon Trail, and the Mormons heading to the Great Salt Lake. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 and the Gadsden Purchase in 1853 added even more land to the U.S., spurring a gold rush in California that brought thousands west and turned the state into a hotbed of conflict over slavery. The 1800s also saw waves of religious fervor with the Great Awakening and Second Great Awakening, leading to new religious movements and social reforms. Women began pushing for more rights and opportunities, culminating in the Seneca Falls Convention and the Married Women's Property Act, marking slow but steady progress. Meanwhile, the struggle against slavery continued, with abolitionists like William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass fighting for change, even as Congress avoided the issue with the gag rule. There you have it, folks. That is Reshaping America in the early 1800s nutshelled. Thanks for stopping by Nutshelled History. Reshape those like and subscribe buttons for me, and say hi in the comments down below. See y'all next time in Nutshelled History.